Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at a Husqvarna T540 III chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it's just not running right. Now, I've already been through this once. I pressured vacuum tested it. I've had the carburetor opened up. I updated the firmware in it. And it still runs terrible. Or I should say, it doesn't run as good as it should. I found a service bulletin that affects T540 Mark IIIs prior to week 51 of 2025. They've replaced the carburetor, and apparently that takes care of the problem. So this video is how to replace the carburetor in your T540. You notice this looks a little different underneath here than on a Mark II version. And there are a few differences, but basically it's still the same pain in the butt as the other one. Right now I am taking the fuel line off. Looks like I got a little bit of spillage in there. Now when you pry this carburetor out, you got to be really careful to kind of pull it out straight and not on an angle. And I'm going to show you why in a little bit. So just be aware that you can't just pull that thing out crooked, because right here where I'm prying out is a plastic elbow that is the impulse line. And it's plastic, right? You can break it. So there we go. We've got the carburetor out. A lot of wires on this carburetor. Sometimes I take a picture before I take things apart, and then I know how to route the wires and put everything back together. You can see the little clips there to hold the wiring harnesses. Pay attention to that. Put it back together wrong, sometimes you'll have problems with maybe the air filter cover not fitting right, or even the air filter not pressing on there correctly. Here's our new carburetor. Looks just like the old one. I think that they may have, according to the service bulletin, they removed the micro screen. I didn't open this up to look. I'm kind of bummed that I didn't. I'm going to have to go back and do that, order another carb and open one up and look at it. But the wiring harness comes with the carburetor. So we're just getting everything unplugged. There is one wire that runs down here behind this cover. And that wire would go to a little puck that you can add. It's like a GPS locator. I believe it also works on Bluetooth for fleet services. So if you were bringing your equipment back into the shop, you would pass through a doorway, and near that door you'd have this receiver that would detect the equipment, whether it's coming or going. I don't really get involved in fleet services outside of robotic lawnmowers, so that's really all I know about it. Now, you notice I had to remove the choke mechanism, and that was to get the wire out of there. Maybe you could sneak it out. I don't know. I didn't bother trying. There's just one screw for that choke mechanism, so off it came. Now I'm just trying to clip the wire back into its holder there. So that looks good. I mean, now we just got to go in reverse and put everything back together, right? Make sure you get the plugs oriented properly, because if you plug the wrong ones in, it's not going to all go back together the same way. But look what I found. I was just kind of examining the carburetor, and I found that that barb fitting that I warned about breaking was pre-broken from the factory, which is a bummer. You look at the old carburetor, and I didn't break the fitting off when I removed it. So now what do I do, right? And my first thought was, oh, I'm going to have to order a carburetor. Then it occurred to me that I could just, if the carburetors are the same, I could just remove the fuel pump plate off the new carburetor. I was just looking for the broken piece. That must have been broken before they packaged it, because I don't see the broken piece on the bench and didn't see it in the box. Stuff happens, right? So, these two plates, are they the same? I mean, they look the same initially. The gaskets look the same. I'm just going to swap the new gaskets onto the old plate and put it all back together. I don't know why that gasket's fighting me, but you notice that the fuel pump membrane on this saw is clear. Traditionally, they would not be clear. They would be, dark colored, or even some blue ones, or some Teflon brown ones. I'm hoping that the clear plate is a response to ethanol. And the auto-tuned carburetors in general have been pretty good about not having stiff metering diaphragms and such. They're old enough. I mean, they started making them in 2012. Now here you kind of saw me throw my hands up a little bit. Well, that's because there was a big interruption. I'm at work doing this, and a coworker needed me to do something else, so I had to come back and figure out what was going on. So on top of this carburetor, there's this plastic clip, and it's the holder for the wiring harnesses. And on one end, you just got to release a clip, and on the other end, it's kind of a fixed tab. So if you just take a close look at it, it's easy to figure out. I just harvested it off the old carburetor and put it on the new one. Now I'm trying to remember exactly how these connectors were laid out in here, and trying to get the wires tucked away. Again, if you snap a picture before you take it apart, it's pretty easy to put it back together the right way. I got the two connectors in there, got the wires laid up the way they should be. Looks pretty good. Here's our throttle cable. I want to get that started because it's kind of hidden way in the back of the carburetor. You can't really access it once the carburetor is flush up to the body of the saw. So I'm just going to get that ferrule dropped into the little notch on the cam there on the end of the carb. Alright, that looks good. Got some wiring harnesses hanging out. Now we got to be mindful of that little barbed fitting that was broken. We got to get that pushed into the rubber hose. And once you do that, it's going to sit there. It's not going to move around. Here's our main fuel line that's got the filter on it coming from the tank. We'll push that onto the carburetor. And you can see our throttle cable hanging there. The sheath of the cable needs to get put into the holder right there. Pretty simple stuff. Now, don't let the fact that you can't really do a function check here, don't let that bother you. I'm going to put this choke on here. You'll see that there's a little notch that fits into the choke rod. And then a single screw that holds that together. Once I put this together, my instinct is to do a function check. Make sure the trigger works, the fast idle feature, the choke release, all of that. And this actually, I did the exact same thing when I had this part the first time. It's my instinct to do that function check, but it doesn't really work until you put the air filter holder in place. So here I can't really get the choke to stay. Throttle's kind of wonky. Yeah, it's just not working. And even knowing that I did this a week before or whatever, I'm still at it doing it again, right? I'll learn. Okay, we know the choke won't work this way. Let's put this air filter adapter on here. It's going to bolt the carburetor down into place. Nice and snug. And now let's try it. Look at that, the choke works. It releases when you hit the throttle. Fast idle feature was working, all that. Okay, so we put a new carburetor on, but these carbs don't come with any firmware. And if you look close here, it even said firmware version 0. And I put this screen up here just to show you the rate at which it uploads. But you'll notice on there, it had two things it had to upload, auto-tune and ignition. So it seems in the past, if you replaced an ignition coil with the exact same part number ignition coil, you didn't need a computer. You could just bolt it in and go. It seems with this latest version of auto-tune, and I'm talking about the ones that have this newer style connector on here. If you're familiar with working with Husqvarna Service Hub, then you know what I'm talking about. I recently put a new ignition coil on a 590 BTS backpack blower. I had updated firmware in the system while I was diagnosing it. I bought a new ignition coil, put it in, hooked it back up to Service Hub, and I had to do another update for the ignition coil. So I think the days of just swapping a coil are gone. All right, we're going to get this buttoned back up here, and we'll see if it primes up. And if it starts and seems to run smooth, then that's all I have for you on the Husqvarna T540 Mark III top panel chainsaw. It just wasn't running right, and the service bulletin suggested replacing the carburetor. Thanks for watching. Later. Looks like it's prime and decent. That's good.